Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. Today, I'm thrilled to interview Kristen Fraser and Igor Lukanin, 9-time world competitors, 2-time Olympians. If it weren't for Igor, you would have gone to the Olympics 3 times. So welcome to the skating lesson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for blaming me.
Yes, it's true. I heard the story. So, all right. So we just had a workout class tonight, Igor. You've both been doing a lot of classes, some mornings start with Kristen conditioning, then we go to, Zach Donahue doing activation. I still don't really know what that is. We do Victor jumps, and we're stretching, then we're working out with Aliona. So what the heck was tonight's class, Igor?
Well, I was trying to explain to you at the end of the class, when you do something for a long time and you do it a lot, like when the ice was there and we used to skate the whole day long, and then I would end up choreographing for like 6 months for all our students. You kind of dream of choreography, you can't help it. Just you dream of what you do on a daily basis. And now, because we've been doing all those classes, that's what I have been dreaming of. And, my brain just kind of start to work, trying to figure out the new exercises for you guys so you're not bored, and that's what you're getting.
Yeah. Lots of fun. So I guess, how many students do you actually have? Because when I go to the ice rink, you'll be there 5:30 in the morning. You're coaching after work. I see you on the weekends. I've seen you at other rinks. So how many students do you actually have at, I guess, any point in time?
I don't know. We never counted.
Somewhere around 50, I would say, between figure skaters, hockey players, children, learn to skate level skaters, basic skills. We kind of run the gamut.
So did you want to coach? I guess, how did you get into skating, and, walk us through the whole start?
I like coaching. I like teaching in general, but I like coaching. And when we were skating, I was already coaching. I started coaching when I was 19. When I was in Germany, when I skated for Germany, that's when I started coaching. Maybe I was 20, not quite sure. And then it kind of just stayed with me when I moved to US. I coached a little bit, and then I started coaching more and more towards the end of our career. And I would say for the last 2 years of our skating, I was coaching 5 to 6 hours a day. And, I just liked it. And then we stopped skating. It's kind of, our skating kind of grew into coaching. And we, for the last year of our skating, we already coached some teams, and Kristen was the director at the rink. So it's, it's kind of just flow from one thing into the other.
How about, so I know Kristen always lets us know that she did figures and you didn't. So I wanted to get into some of your backgrounds through skating, how you both wound up in ice dance, Azerbaijan. So I guess, yeah, Kristen, how did you start?
I started in park and recreation skating when I was 7 years old. I was actually kind of, old for today's standards, definitely anyway. I wanted to be a baton twirler. And no, I know, but I did. I have no hand-eye coordination whatsoever. And so they pretty much told my parents to help me choose something else. So next I chose voice lessons. I did that for about 3 months, and they called my parents in and told me to pick something else. My parents were like, wow, this kid, poor kid, she's got nothing to do. So I chose figure skating, and I hated it. I hated going every day. And then one day it just clicked. And I started out in Ontario, California, at an ISI rink. I did everything. I did kaleidoskate. I did a duo. I did a trio. I did production. I did everything. And then I changed to Paramount Ice House, and I took from Darlene Gilbert. Sandra Holmes was my figures coach. The Yelchin family, Irina and Victor, did my singles and pairs. And I just kind of stayed there until I was about 16. I skated with Peter Conchasm, who is an extremely talented single skater. He skated for Thailand late in his career and decided to stop ice dancing. And so from there, I kind of moved across the country seeking, partner after partner. Until I ended up at US Nationals one year. I was taking from Natalia Anenko, And she and Genrikh Svirtensky had been partners for obviously their entire career. And she said, do you know, or he said, sorry, do you know a girl? She said, yes, take this one. Not in a bad way, but she knew that I wasn't in like my perfect situation. So I went and I tried out with Igor. That was right after US Nationals in 1999.
April 2000.
Right, but right after like the 99 season. And then I ended up moving. He picked me, so I moved to Maryland.
Okay. So now you were telling us that you both started in singles. You were too fat, so they made you ice dance, which is
no. I was a little too chubby for single skating standards in Soviet Union in our skating school in Sverdlovsk. Back then it called Sverdlovsk. So I was asked to leave the school and come back when I'm a little lighter. Mm-hmm. So I left, and then I started to work out at home in the morning before school, and then run in the park before I had to go to school, and Sverdlovsk is a pretty cold city in the winter. So that was fun. But then I lost some weight, and then they took me back. But I was lucky enough to come back right at the time when Oleg Epstein came back to Sverdlovsk from Dnipropetrovsk. And he's Oleg Epstein. It's coach of Shabutanis. He used to work with Marina and Igor, and now I think he still works with Marina a little bit, but now he's back in Chicago. So anyways, he came back to our city from Dnipropetrovsk, and he was trying to gather the ice dance group together. And so he picked me, and Alexei Gorshkov just started coaching. He's just retired from skating, and he started coaching, and Oleg took Alexei as a second coach. So Alexei was my direct coach. And that's how I started in ice dance. And, Oleg and Alexei were amazing coaches. And now I'm here.
You skated with other American girls though before Kristen, right? Like, who is this Jenny Danlin on your bio? You have girls we don't even know about, Igor.
Jenny Dallin. Jenny Dallin was the one whom I originally started to skate when I came from Germany to US, and with her I started to represent Azerbaijan.
Okay.
So,
how did you wind up skating for Germany?
I skated for Russia with Ksenia Smetanenko. Well, I moved, when I was in Sverdlovsk, I skated with Natalia Bagaeva. And then Natalia quit skating, and I couldn't find a partner skating in Sverdlovsk, but I got the offer from Gennady Ackerman to come and skate for Central Soviet Army Club in Moscow with Ksenia Smetanenko. So we came and tried out, and we started skating, and it was a pretty successful team. We went to Junior Worlds in 1994 to Budapest. But 6 months before Junior Worlds, Ksenia's parents immigrated to Germany. So Ksenia was living with her grandma in Moscow, being 14 years old. And I back then was, I think, 18. So I was living in a dormitory. So after the Junior Worlds, Ksenia decided to get reunited with her parents and move to Germany as well. And they asked me if I want to go. And I kind of didn't have it's like it was such a good partnership, but I didn't want to lose that. And I knew that there was no way that she's going to stay and so we can skate in Moscow. So I decided to move to Germany. And back then you didn't have to have a citizenship to compete for the country. You just had to be a resident for a year. So since Ksenia had it's like a green card in Germany, right? So she had a green card in Germany, and I became a student in the University of Sport in Köln. We were able to compete for Germany. Okay. And we started to compete for Germany, and we won German Cup, and we were third at German Nationals after Samuel Gezelian and Jennifer Gouldsby and Rene Loze and Kati Winkler. We were third, but then the situation in ISU changed with the foreign skaters. So one of the partners had to be citizens. So neither Samuel and Jennifer or us and Ksenia could compete for Germany. So, and that's when Ksenia decided to skate with Samuel for Armenia. And I worked on constructions in Germany for 6 months until Jenny Dallin and Genrikh Svirtensky with the help of Tatiana Tarasova, found me.
Okay.
And then they called me and asked me if I want to, come to United States and skate. And I was like working on constructions, skating. That was easy decision.
Okay. Now, did you even know German? I mean,
yeah. In Germany, in order for you to become a student, you have to take a very difficult language exam. So I had to go through the 6 months of very intensive language course. It's like 6 hours a day. You have to go to school and study language. So I was fluent in German back then. Now when I go to Germany, understanding is easy. Speaking is a little hard. English gets on top of my German, so my German sounds a little funny, but I still understand.
Kristen, you said that skating clicked for you at a certain point. Now, I've heard rumors that you were not the best in practice, but that you could do anything in competition. That one of your coaches said that, from Jonathan McGelnick. So how did this click for you?
I was a little bit lazy. And I had I think you can probably attest to, I had a very good motor behind me. So every day, for instance, Nikolai would say, okay, do 2 patterns of this and 2 patterns of that, and do pieces of your OD, and then your practice can be over. So I would do all of that, and I'd work really hard, and they'd be really good. I'd be exhausted. I'd start to get my guards and leave the ice, and he was like, where are you going? We have to do twizzles 82 times and another 4 patterns. And I'm like, but he told us to do that, and I did that. So I love to compete. I love to perform. And I think that was something that I was always good at, because I enjoyed it. That was what I craved. I loved getting dressed up. I loved spending an hour doing my hair and my makeup before each practice and each competition. That was what was exciting for me. That's how I got through all of his training, was knowing that in 6 weeks we would go to China, or in 2 months we would go to Europeans. That's how I got through having this guy.
But you also studied sports psychology, right? So is that how you wound up having affinity for that? And I guess, when did you study sports psychology?
I didn't start my master's degree until well after we quit skating. So we quit skating in 2009. And I had finished my bachelor's, I think, in about 2004, 2005. And I always knew, when we first started skating together in Maryland, for whatever reason, I think, I lived on my own. It was my first time really, truly living on my own. I was 19 years old. When I was 18 in Texas, I lived with a family. So I was away from my family, but I wasn't on my own. So Maryland was the first time I was on my own. And I think part of me had a lot of fun. Igor and I were very good friends, and his roommate and some skaters, we hung out together and things like that, but I didn't really have parents there. And so maybe I would go a little while without talking to my parents or whatever. So they decided that they wanted me to see a sports psychologist, because they thought that I was, unhappy there. And the sports psychologist kind of, and I get it now going through the program, but things that she was saying and things that she was, kind of blaming my thoughts and feelings on, I completely disagreed with. And so I always thought that was not a very trustworthy profession. Maybe they didn't know what they were talking about, or something to that effect. So when we quit skating, I knew that was something I was very interested in. Igor had a very, very close friend of ours and a student and, a mentor that is a professor at NYU. And she got me a couple of meetings with people in different various programs there. And I really thought heavily about going into NYU and getting my master's in sports psychology and counseling psychology. But at that point, like Igor said, we had already been working for 2 years. We had already been working while we were competing. I was already the director. I had been the director for almost 2 years. And it was a very hard decision. We knew we wanted to get married. We knew we wanted to have kids. There's only so much time when you're already 30, when you compete for most of your life and you're already 30, there's only so much time left in the day. So I put everything on hold for a little while, kind of found a master's program that I was comfortable with, and then finally did get my master's in sports psychology.
What did you disagree with that kind of spurred this whole thing on for you to want to go for your
She blamed everything on my mom, which
Oh.
I'm not necessarily disagreeing in some people's situation. I'm not saying that family doesn't play a very important role in who you become eventually, but as I'm getting older, and don't ever tell her I told you this, but as I'm getting older, I think I am turning into my mom, but in a good way. My mom is 70 years old. She just turned 70 last weekend. And up until the pandemic, she was working 7 days a week. She gets up at 4:30 in the morning. She goes to work so she can be done to help us with, you know, the grandkids. And that's what I feel that I got from my mother. I don't feel like I ever got anything negative from her. And if I was unhappy when I lived in Maryland, it's because I was 19 and I was a kid for the first time living on my own and figuring out bills and, you know, credit cards and, I don't know, going out to dinner and things like that. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't people that do unfortunately have negative experiences as a result of something that happened in their training early on. But I mean, I had hard ass coaches. Can I say that? Sorry.
Yeah.
You know, I had coaches who were very, very tough on me, but I would say it was my coaches that were tough on me, not my parents. And I was lazy, totally. But my mother did nothing to me, I swear.
So you had hard coaches. Did Igor speak English at this point in time? Like, how did you merge together as a pair? Because I've heard rumors Igor didn't have good English like 10 years ago. So
Well, his English was definitely better than our coach. So, he definitely, no, but he spoke good. I mean, he spoke well. I mean, he definitely helped me understand, like I said, the Russian that I wasn't getting. And there were some things that he would say that were funny that I would have to kind of translate to our British coach, Liz Coates. But I think your English was good.
you worked with Liz Coates before or after she was with Spielbond?
After.
Well, I worked with Liz Coates before. So I worked with Liz Coates and Spielbond when I competed for the U.S. my last year at Nationals, at U.S. Nationals, skating with Jonathan Nichols. And then I moved to Igor. We skated with Genrich for a full year, I think.
Yeah, and
then Liz came the following year.
Okay. So I guess, how did you blend your technique? Because you're from California, he's from Russia. Like, how different was, you know, I guess your skating technique?
I think our technique was very different.
I won't say anything.
I know. I think our technique was very different. I had a lot to learn. There are a lot of things that I have very naturally. I have, and no offense, but I have very good rhythm. I think I have very good musicality. I think that I excel at dancing on the ice. On the floor, like ballroom dancing, Latin, things like that. If you've ever seen him dance, you would totally agree with me.
I'm better at hip hop now.
Oh, he's better at hip hop now.
I've seen you dance to your Irish music, Igor. So,
and that I think he does. I would tell you that that's pretty good compared to his. Well, I'll show you a video of his hip hop, but he definitely hears everything, like the weak beat, at like all the time. I mean, still now when he teaches, I'm like, you know, one. So I had a lot of work to do technically, and it wasn't anything that my coaches ever did wrong. It's just that's how I grew up, and that's where I was at that time. And I was very fortunate throughout my career with Igor to work with some extremely talented coaches, Genrich Stratensky, Alexander Zhulin, Nikolai Morozov. I mean, I think that we worked with some of the best Russian coaches, I mean, even still today, and really helped bring my technique. And obviously looking back now, ice dancing isn't what it was. You know what I mean? It's totally different now. I mean, our Choctaws went in straight lines, but that wasn't necessarily our fault. That was just the technique of the time.
Okay. So Igor's technique, obviously he'll say was better, but if Igor teaches something, then Kristen will correct it. So I'm just saying.
Yes, because I think that the way Igor does things sometimes, it would be like the way Nikolai Morozov would do something sometimes. And I'm not saying that they're not right, and I'm not saying that that's not amazing, but in order for the general public to be able to do it that way, it's very difficult. And therefore, I think because of where I came from, I think that I understand more the steps needed to get to do it like he does, or like Nikolai Morozov. I mean, when we used to do choreography for Nikolai, the two of them would go out in the middle and do the piece, and I'm like, I'm never gonna look like that. I mean, he would be doing the thing. I mean, it was, they were great. They were really good. I was like, if only Nikolai were a woman, this would be a great team. They would.
So I guess, who is the leader in the team? Because
you know, Dave, I knew you're gonna ask that. You know how I knew? Because everyone asks us that, and we don't know. We've been skating and working together for 20 years now, and I don't think we have a leader. We kind of know what our weaknesses and strengths are, and we listen to each other. I know that I can do what she does, and at the same time, she knows that she can do what I do, and she kind of lets me do what I need to do, and then I move it to her, and then she finishes she finishes it.
I think we're both very, very strong personalities, and I think that we both have definite traits that are type A and leader. Therefore, like for instance, he always says, come on, come out with me, I'm gonna go do their choreography. And I just know that that's not good, because he is a very creative person and he's very good at what he does. But like you said, if I tell him that he's doing it wrong, then things kind of explode and we get nowhere. So like he said, he does his job, and then when he feels that he's gotten it to where he can get it, then I try
like
and
the
manipulate
constructive criticism. I don't like,
and I'm not good at constructive
I don't
criticism.
like when someone tells me that's not good. Okay. I need to know why it's not good and how to make it better. That's what I'd like to hear. Yeah.
So you went from 30th in the world, and then you moved up to 18th with Kristen right away. So I guess what clicked?
We just made better. I don't know. We just worked better. You know, when we started skating together, we became best friends pretty much the next day. And that helped us to, you know, in ice dancing, in order to become a team, you have to skate a lot. You have to practice a lot. You know, you have to do same piece for, I don't know, 30, 40 times until your body start to communicate and the program kind of molds in and your techniques start to blend in with each other and you start to look like one. And being best friends helped us, because even though Kristen didn't want to do pieces 30 times, but I was able to convince her that we need to, simply because we had the, you know, we could communicate. With the previous partners, it was a little bit challenging.
We knew we both had the same goal, and our goal was to get better every time. And I think that was something that pushed us through fatigue and hardship and disappointment. And we were always able to get back into the rink and get back to training because we knew that we had the same goal, and it just made it easy.
When you moved from Spielbahn to then competing internationally, was that a huge adjustment for you? Yeah.
Huge. Okay. Have you heard the story about my first Europeans?
No. So.
Okay.
We get on the warm up for the free program, right?
It's free program. Well, no. First, you got to go back to the compulsory dances.
All right. So
we had the silver samba, and I loved it because I was doing my moves and I was doing everything. Go ahead.
We get on the ice for the warm up for silver samba, and we are on the ice with Ilya Verbuch and Lobachova, Barbara Fuzarpoli, like, you know, big people, and Kristen just like almost crying. So anyways, we get through the warm up, and I think we skated either first or second, I don't remember. So we start going through our introduction steps, and we do left, right. Kristen catches the topics, falls down left. Before
like so hard.
Before we even got to the first step of the pattern, but then somehow I don't even know.
He picked me up. He literally like picked me up and carried me, and we did left and right and 1, 2, 3, and we picked it up right on time. We didn't lose. I mean, I lost, but we didn't lose a beat. We started on the correct beat, so we didn't get a musical deduction. But
then we get to the free program. We get on the warm up, and I see that she is pretty much just about to cry.
No, I cried.
Not on the warm up.
No, on the warm up, I cried. Forward circle, crossover, bawling.
So we get through the warm up, and I'm like, okay, you know, maybe actual program won't be as bad. So we got on the position, the music starts, we do first, I don't know, 15 seconds, and she starts bawling.
I'm gonna still do my steps.
During the competition.
Oh, yeah.
During the competition, after 30 seconds, and I'm thinking, I still have 4 minutes to go. How are we gonna do that? So that was fun.
And this was me thinking that I knew that I loved to compete, right? Like I loved to perform. So like I was so excited. I was at Europeans, like this is gonna be amazing. And yeah, it was, and I can't even tell you, I mean, I could tell you that I was nervous, but I couldn't even tell you that I was so nervous that I was gonna be like incapacitated. Like it was, you know what I mean? Like one of those out of body experiences. And we got in the kiss and cry, and Genrich sat on that side and he sat on that side, and they both kind of like looked at me, and I sat there, and then I think I was smiling.
And I was very tired. I remember I was very tired.
So
there's a big difference between Europeans and Worlds then? Did you have a freak out for Worlds?
No, that was the only time it ever happened. I mean, that I know of. That was the first time that ever happened. And I'm trying to think, that was after Zagreb when
Zagreb was next year. Zagreb
so then the next year,
for the Olympics.
So the qualifying for the Olympic Games, we skated after a team for Belarus, and it was a young girl. She was, I don't know, French-American of some sorts, trained in Connecticut, trained with Tarasova. They skated right before us, and we were kind of standing there, staying loose, shaking around. And I mean, I guess I was listening to their music, but I wasn't watching them. And all of a sudden, the girl only flew off the ice
in the middle of the program,
in the middle of their free program, and hid behind the wall right in front of me. And I'm like, I mean, and this is from somebody that last year was crying my eyes out. So I'm like, okay, I mean, I get it, but your music's going. And the partner was standing in the middle of the ice, like looking
not knowing what to do,
and looking at the judges. The referee was like, do I blow the whistle? They didn't know exactly what to do. He skated over, he looked behind the wall, and they're looking at me, and I was like, I don't know the kid. Like, I don't know. What do you want me to do, kick her? So anyway, so they ended up disqualifying them.
Where was Tarasova during this?
She wasn't there. They were with a second or third coach, or, that was beneath her at that point. And he kind of looked at me, and I'm sure he was thinking, oh shit, here we go again. Like, oh my God, what's going to happen with her this time? But we were fine. Nothing happened.
We were second, we qualified for the Olympics.
Yeah, but I mean, after that, I think it was pretty smooth sailing. After that, he was the one that used to get nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was always nervous competing. Always. I would get nervous during the Floyd Hall Arena Christmas show.
Okay.
And it's like,
that's a big one.
Yeah, always. And I'm always, and that's the thing why when we had Charlie and Meryl on our show, we were asking them how our topic of the conversation was being nervous, because that's actually what I was always interested in. Mm-hmm. How do people get through that without being nervous? Is it just me, or everyone goes through that? I was always nervous. Like, she liked to compete. I hated to compete. Mm-hmm. I like to practice. I would practice 24/7, but competing,
So what would happen to you physically when you compete? Because my knees feel like they're like frozen, or like
I would be very nervous, and I wouldn't say that I would have 100% control of my body until the second the music starts. Mm-hmm. When the music starts, then something just, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but I would feel that just body does it.
I think that's pretty nervous.
And that's why I was always practicing so much. I knew that I am practicing, 3 times. If I can skate during the practice 150%, that I will be able to do 100 at the competition. My body is just gonna do it for me. That's why I pushed Kristen to do all those pieces, 100 times during the practices, because I needed it.
But
I needed it for competition.
Julien helped you though.
Julien helped me.
Julien used to yell at him.
Right, but
like bad.
Julien helped me.
What did Igor get yelled at for? Yeah.
No, just like before we would compete. So we would go out for warm up, then we would get off the ice, and we wouldn't skate first. Let's say we would skate third or something, and he would take him off into the corner and berate him for like 3 or 4 minutes, and then send him back, and he would go and skate.
Yeah, but I don't think it was so much Sasha. I mean, he was taking my mind off that, but I think the practicing that was helping me to knowing, be confident in knowing.
Isn't that what the Russians learn in their school of sport, how to manipulate athletes to get performance?
Well, I think that, don't you think it's just done year after year? So they just, they're just doing what was done to them. I mean,
but they also study it in this,
time.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to.
Usually a Russian coach, you know, they tell you how bad you are. And then sometimes before a competition, then they're like, you are so beautiful, you are so wonderful. And you're like, who are you? Like, what is this? You know? Yes. The first time I skated, Natasha was like, you are, you know, so hardworking, so good. And I was like, you just told me I looked like hell, like 5 minutes ago. So, yes. Yeah. So, so you nervous for the qualifying? I guess when you skate at the actual Olympics in Salt Lake City, like the level of freak out, what is at that point? Because you were.
I loved Salt Lake City. So Salt Lake City, well, actually both Olympics, but Salt Lake City, I felt was just an amazing experience as a games. I think that all the volunteers were excited to be there and happy and helpful. Every single person that you ran into in the Olympic Village or the surrounding area, I think that they were just so happy to be involved in that 2002 Olympics that it made you feel really, really special, you know, as an athlete. I hurt myself, or I got hurt, or I woke up. We got there at night. So being from such a small delegation, they put us in the hotel, like the parents' hotel on the campus of the university there in Salt Lake. So we actually had really nice accommodations compared to other delegations.
Everyone lived in the dorms,
and we lived in a hotel.
So instead of the Olympic Village, like, okay.
And we got there late one night, and the next morning I woke up and my left knee was like four times the size of my right. And we had no idea. It was just inflammation. I hadn't done anything. I hadn't twisted it. So I was seeing the physiotherapist there, and they were, you know, wrapping it and doing massage and things like that. But so I think that was something that kind of took our minds off of being nervous. And I don't think at that time, we had been competing for that long. I mean, me definitely internationally to begin with, but us together. So I don't think we were really expecting anything. I mean, obviously we wanted to do our best, but it's not like we thought we were going to be top 10 or, you know, we weren't really working towards anything specific. So 2006 Olympics, we obviously had been around much longer and we
had expectations coming in. You know, we were already in the top 10 at Europeans for 2 or 3 times. So we had expectations going to Italy. But Salt Lake City in general, it was the last Olympics when the Olympic village was one. There was only one village for all the sports. So you're just walking through that, you know, amount of athletes from different disciplines were creating, you felt the magnitude of the event. You felt how great that is. Olympic Games, you know, it's like the space, the stadium. We were competing at the basketball stadium, so it, you know, it's 50 something.
Delta, yeah.
Right, 50 something thousand arena. It's huge. And then Italy, everything was so smaller. You know, like the Olympic Village was small.
And disorganized. It was just, everybody had their own set of rules. You never knew what to expect. One day you had to go through secondary screening. My grandfather, who had like a pacemaker and a this, that, and the other thing, they were, you know, patting him down. And it was just, I don't know, I think it was a negative experience. It didn't feel special at all. I mean, in Salt Lake City, and not that, I mean, as a female figure skater, I know I've heard you say before, we shouldn't be, or aren't usually that centered on food, but you go to the Olympic Games, and in 2002, they had a huge food hall and everything was healthy. Like you could get anything you wanted, chicken breast, you know, you could get anything. And in Italy, we lived off of McDonald's, and not good McDonald's, because the food was just terrible. So I would have like a chocolate muffin and a latte, and like, that's what I got, unless I wanted a Big Mac, which I didn't want a Big Mac. So, you know, it was just, it didn't feel special at all to me. So our skating was great, but I mean, not like great, but I mean, we liked the Latin OD, and there was a lot about, you know, our skating that year, our choreography and our programs. We were with Julien by then. We were training, you know, among the gold medalists. So we had something really pushing us every day for training.
Amazing free program, Blues for the Club, what Sasha did was a very good program. And
so 2002, you did not have the dramatic free dance, and this was like the height of Russian drama. You have like Anisina skating to like Martin Luther King with like no irony, and you have like Lobachova and Alverbuk who are like have the lift that looks like it's like the Twin Tower falling. Like, and what was with your program? It was not, you know.
We just knew, you know, it was our second season together, and in ice dancing you have to gain the experience, you have to gain the trust of the judges, you know, you have to be consistent, not just for one season or 2 seasons, but you have to stay there for a while and improve your skill and level of skating and just develop your own style in order to become a very solid ice dance team. And we just didn't have that mileage behind us, you know, so we were just kind of literally having fun, I think, at that point. Yeah.
And I think we were a little bit like homemade looking at that point. And at no fault of anybody and not a lack of resources. It was just like Igor said, we were just, I think, new, and we were kind of following our leaders at that point who were trying their very best. And really, Genrik and his wife were just so supportive of us, and I mean, they brought us together, but we were just new.
We were
You
fresh.
looked like a very innocent ice dance team.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
With potential, you know.
I don't know. I was watching your 2005 free dance, and it didn't look like the same people. I mean, Kristen had like hair that was chopped off, and she had that like Russian bleach blonde dye job and like a dress where half of it was missing, and it was zebra print. I mean, that was a real look, you know?
Well, that was Julin's influence. And when we started with Julin, yeah, I mean, he really did push us and take us to a whole nother level as far as choreography, for sure. I mean, and the musicality of his choreography, I think, was what kind of
creativity
really took us to the next level. And yeah, again, costuming, you know, we were using Lanique in Manhattan, and just there was no detail that went unnoticed. And whether it was your taste or not, you know, you never know. You can't win everyone, right? But they really, I think they were cutting edge at that time anyway.
How'd you wind up in New Jersey?
Well, you heard Igor's deportation stories.
No, please tell the deportation story, Igor. The people, you know, the public needs to know this. So.
Oh, I thought you heard them. Okay.
In 2003, we were flying back from Trophy La Ligue back then. It's a Grand Prix in Paris. And we were flying back into the Washington, D.C. airport, and I was detained at the airport and questioned and sent back to Paris. And then from Paris, I had to fly back to Yekaterinburg.
Wait, you're leaving out the part because you have a last name that is one letter different than a guy that's on the most wanted list.
Back then, he was on the most wanted list, yes. So, and that's why I was detained and questioned and sent back to my origin destination. And then after that, sent back to my city. And I had to go to the United States consulate, and they took my passport, and they pretty much, I was forced to stay in my city until my situation was cleared, and it took 9 months.
So as this is going on, like, is your life flashing before your eyes? Are you thinking like, Kristen's gonna kill me? Like what, you know?
I was younger, you know, I was younger. Now I would think that, you know, having kids and having family and, you know, responsibilities, but back then I didn't have any responsibilities yet. So, of course I wasn't happy. That wasn't my, you know, best scenario of the situation, but I ended up then I can just adapt it and live through with that.
I was freaking out.
Yeah,
yeah, like while you're on the plane, are they yelling at you that you're a terrorist? Like, are you, you know, have like a light in front of your...
No.
I've never been deported, Igor, you know, multiple times. I don't know what happens. I don't know, you know, this doesn't happen to me.
No, they handcuffed me and they put me on the plane, and I didn't quite knew where I was going. And then they handcuffed me when I was on the plane.
And like, what do you do on the plane? Are we watching a movie? Like, what do we do?
No, they put me, you know, they put me on the back rows where usually stewardesses are resting, you know, and I just sat there not knowing where I'm going. I remember I was calling Christian, I think, as the plane was taking off. Or
No. You couldn't.
Maybe,
we had no communication. I mean, as far as I know, we had no communication.
Parents, I don't remember.
Because So they took me into secondary questioning with him, which they never, like, you're not allowed, we weren't married. I wasn't being detained. Like, they usually don't take you at all. But when they opened his suitcase, well, no, I was in the baggage claim with the bags. And so somebody came out and said, do you have Igor Lukanin's bags? And I said, yes, they're here. And he goes, well, bring them and come with me. So I took the bags, and then they open the bags and they see rhinestones. And at that point we were wearing navy blue velvet. So navy blue velvet catsuit with rhinestones. And they're looking at this guy like, you wear this is yours, and like skates and things like that. So they ended up, obviously not understanding who he is, sending him back. But I got to keep his bags, which is not normal usually. But I mean, it was a saving grace because he ended up going to Paris. He needed a place to stay. If he had carried all that junk around with him, I mean, it would have been cumbersome. So I left the airport and I started calling his previous partner, Jenny Dolan's father, who's an attorney, and who helped get his, visas and everything up until that point. And actually, they are just a really great family, and they helped us as much as they could. I mean, I don't think it was very much at that time, but very, very helpful. And but all of his credit cards and bank cards and everything were canceled or put on hold or whatever. And so then I went back to Genrich's house, and with Genrich and his wife Julia and I stayed up the entire night trying to figure out how to wire him money, trying to figure out how to get him a plane to go home to Russia. I tried to talk to whoever we could in the middle of the night in Washington, D.C. to try and help figure out what the heck was going on, because obviously we didn't understand. So I was a nervous wreck. My coach was maybe giving me a cocktail or two to try and calm me down.
And I landed, I didn't know where we landed. So the plane landed, and then everyone left the plane, and they wouldn't let me leave the plane. And I don't have passport, like I don't have anything, I don't know where am I, what's gonna happen after that. And then I see special forces guys, 5 guys with how you call this, shields and bulletproof vest and machine guns coming in, handcuffing me and walking me off the plane as the captain of the flight gives them my passport. And then they brought me to the, I think the chief of customs, someone who is in charge of the airport. And luckily, a guy's daughter was a skater. Mm-hmm. And he saw me competing a day before, at Bercy Stadium. And he recognized me. And then we talked, and he kind of said, well, you still have a multiple entry visa into France, so we're going to let you go because we don't have anything against you. But you have to return to your city as soon as possible, because American consulate is waiting for your appearance. And I spent 3 days in Paris trying to get the flight, and then I flew into my city, and then I went into the consulate, and then Russian special forces came and arrested me there. Detained me and questioned me, and then 3 hours later said, well, we don't have anything against you either, so bye, but you can leave the city, so the passport gonna stay in the consulate. And Kristen, luckily the world championship was in Moscow. Mm-hmm. So Kristen flew to Russia. We missed, Kristen flew to Russia to prepare for Europeans. Mm-hmm. And then she fell on the streets
of the middle of the street.
Of Moscow.
On the ice, like not just in the middle of the street. Like I fell on ice in the middle of the street.
Okay.
And just completely wrecked my back. And we couldn't find anybody to help me. We didn't know anybody. We didn't have doctors. We didn't have masseuses. We found some guy that wanted to, first, in order to examine me, he needed me to take off all my clothes. And Igor's standing there, and we're like, okay. So, and I'm like, well, is there a room I can go into? Like, do you have a gown? I don't, I'm like, okay. So he goes, oh, yeah, go right over there. So there's like a 2-sided partition.
I was like,
Igor's like that. And so I'm standing behind 2 sides of partition, and I'm, taking off my clothes, and the guy goes, oh yeah, I don't think there's anything I can do for you. Like, but thanks. I mean, I'm like, okay, well, that'll be however many euro, and we paid, and then we walked out. It was like, okay, thanks. So we missed Europeans that year.
Yeah, we missed Europeans, but then Kristen had a
I had a
breakdown. So she's like, bye, I'm leaving. And she left the United States.
Well, no, because
there was bombing in Moscow.
There was a bombing at the metro station that was 1 metro station away from where we were living. And I wasn't sorry, I'm from Southern California, like totally laid back and definitely not in today's world surrounding us. So I just wasn't used to that kind of stuff. I was obviously somewhat sheltered and I just wasn't used to bombings where I was going to have to be walking the next day. Like I just couldn't wrap my head around that. So I went home, and the dumb thing was, and I did know that, I knew that I would have circumstances, surrounding everything. I'd have to get a new visa and I'd have to wait. I knew that there was going to be a waiting period. So I went home and took a little 30-day vacation while I waited for my next.
2 weeks.
I thought it was 30 days.
2 weeks, because then you came back and we had 4
Only
weeks
2
before
weeks.
Worlds.
Is he mad at you at this point?
No. There wasn't the happiest moment of my life either. I'm like, okay, well, she isn't happy. If she's gonna stay here unhappy, it's not gonna be any good to both of us. So if she feels like she needs to go home and recharge, so she went. And I kind of stayed in Moscow, and my mom came, and I was just skating by myself, and my mom was in Moscow with me. So I kind of, chilled, waiting for her to come back to her senses. And then 2 weeks later, she came back, and then
I don't know if she's coming back.
And then we skated with Tchaikovsky ring for 2 weeks, and then Julin came to Novogorsk with Navka, Kostomarov, and Galit, and Sergey. And who else was there?
Not our people.
Yeah.
Single skater.
Right. And we skated in Novogorsk for 3 weeks before Worlds. So luckily we didn't have to go outside of the country, because I didn't have my passport, my travel pass. I had my national pass, which allowed me to travel inside the country, but I couldn't leave the country without my travel pass. And then after Worlds, Kristen, okay, bye. And she went to the United States. And I actually started working with Ilya Averbuch. Ilya helped me a lot during that time.
Wait, so who was coaching you? Is that how you wound up working with Julin, because you were deported?
No, we were already with Julin.
No.
You said that you were with
Wrong. We were training with Svirtensky because we were living in Svirtensky's wife Julia's parents' apartment. That's where we were living.
The Russians are different, Igor. They seem very similar, but they are actually different people.
Thank you.
That was in Dortmund, Germany. Okay. And so at Worlds, we had many conversations, and whether it was true or not, I mean, it's all about perception, but we felt that at that point, Genrikh wasn't able to help us figure out his situation. And looking back on it now, nobody could have helped us.
Wait, how did you compete at Dortmund Worlds if you didn't have a passport?
I missed taking the years. I was talking about the next year when the first time I was deported, they didn't take my passport for whatever reason.
Okay.
So the first time I deported twice. I forgot to tell you that. So when the first time I was deported, they didn't take my passport. So I was allowed to travel in and out, but I couldn't go back into United States because they canceled my visa. So I had to wait in Russia for United States Embassy to issue me a new visa. And that took 9 months. But then during that time, that's how it happened. During that time, after Dortmund Worlds, Kristen went back to Maryland, and then at Worlds we told Genrikh that we're not gonna work with him anymore, that we made a decision to move to Julin. And while I was sitting in Russia waiting for my visa to be redone, Kristen moved from Maryland to New Jersey to Julin.
And the sad thing was, right before he was deported, I had just bought a townhouse in Maryland. So I want to say I bought it, I don't know, maybe let's say September, October.
November.
And then in November, he was deported.
Thanks,
and
Igor.
in January, I sold it. And I actually made money off of it, which is just completely crazy. And I didn't even have to go on the market. I put the sign in the front yard, and a woman walked up and she goes, will you not put it on the market? Will you not list it if I sign today? I was like, yeah, sure. I need to get out. And at that point, I was dating another figure skater who was training with Julin, and he kind of talked me into it. And I knew some stuff, but I didn't really understand the magnitude of choosing Julin, and it ended up just obviously being the best choice for us. And I mentioned it to Igor, and Igor was like, yeah, sure. I mean, if he'll take us, yes, that's where we should go.
Was he in Montclair or was he in Hackensack at that point?
Montclair,
yeah. So Kristen moved to New Jersey while I was in Russia, and then I came back on the 4th of July, 2004. 2004, I came back. And then we started skating with Julien, then we went through the whole season, and we went to Torino Europeans in 2005. And after Torino, before Moscow, my visa was expiring, so I had to fly back to Russia to renew my visa. So when I went back to Russia right after Torino, I went into the American consulate in my city, and the same story happened again. And now once they scanned my passport, they saw that I'm on the wanted list, and they called the Russian forces. They came, interrogated me, let me out after 3 hours, took my passport, said, you can leave the country. So you have to stay inside the country until we clear you, because at that point, I think the person whom I was mistaken for was on a global list. So, and then Kristen came to Moscow again. And we trained in Novogorsk.
Do you know Russian at all at that point?
Yeah, no. And that's why it was so hard the first time that I had gone. I mean, the first time that I went, we were still 1, 2, 3, 4 clicking to write text messages. You know what I mean? There wasn't Wi-Fi. You know what I mean? I had books. Like, I had to sit, not that I shouldn't sit and read now, but you know what I mean? Like, I didn't have an iPad. I couldn't watch Netflix. I was in a room. So it was a 2-bedroom apartment that we were staying in. And the 2 bedrooms being a bedroom and then like a living room, which they use as a bedroom. So I would shut myself into one room, and that's where I would be from 5 p.m. when we got home at the end of the training day until 5 a.m. the next day. You know, it was lonely. It was hard.
Who were you skating with in Russia then? Who was coaching you before Worlds? Is that Julien went with you to Russia, or?
The second time?
Yeah.
Yeah, the second time is when we were in Novogorsk, and and Julien was there because NAFCA was there. So whenever the Russian team went to train, you know, to get acclimated, and so he was able to take everybody with him. I mean, we obviously had to pay. We weren't, you know, on the Russian roster, but Galit and Sognovsky were there, and us, and so
maybe Ilyinik there at that point? Were Ilyinik and Nikita with him, or no?
No, they were babies then. Babies.
They were babies.
Yeah, but who did they skate with when they were babies? They were
Averbuch.
Oh, okay.
So after Moscow Worlds, Kristen went back to United States, and I didn't have my visa yet, so I couldn't leave yet. And that's when, actually before Worlds, when we were in Novogorsk training for Worlds, Ilya came and he was signing the contract with Roman Kostomarov for his Siberian tour. And Roman was still skating during his practice, and I was in the room changing, and Ilya was sitting and talking to me, and I told him my story, and he's like, listen, I'm looking for someone, what are you going to do after Worlds? I'm like, well, I will, you know, have to sit in Russia and wait until I will get my visa. He's like, don't you want to take care of my school while we are traveling a Siberian tour? I'm like, sure, great. And that's when I worked with Ilya, Alena and Nikita. And I think Alena was 7 maybe, and Nikita were 9, and they were like the cutest kids ever. It was so much fun working with them. It was them, it was Zhiganshina, you know, skated for Germany later.
Yes.
Her brother, who was like
Ruslan, yeah.
Ruslan, he was like little. You know, they had an amazing group of little kids back then. And I worked with them for 2 months while Ilya and Irina were on tour until I got my visa, and then I went back to the United States.
So were you skating with Navka when she was the Pink Panther?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
The Olympic program in 2006.
No, that was 2004, Kristen.
No, the Olympic program was Tosca.
Yeah.
No, their short program. Didn't they do?
The Pink Panther was 2004, right? Their free dance? Yeah.
Oh, well, we were still there. No, we weren't there then.
You need to pay more attention to your ice dance divas, Kristen, okay?
I don't know. She had the same pink dress.
You had the same hair. I don't know. It was like...
Didn't she wear the same pink dress?
I don't think so.
For Pink Panther and for Latin in 2006.
Maybe. I'll check this.
Okay, you check.
Why would she wear the same dress? She's Navka. She's like, you know, very important person.
I mean, I'm not saying that she didn't have a different one made, but I feel like they had a different one made, and then she ended up not like it didn't make her look how she wanted to look. I don't know.
Okay. So you competed through Torino. So did you think like after that point to Olympics you were good, or like what made you want to keep going? Yeah, both of you, you know. But you are a team at this point.
We always, no, I know, but yeah, but as much as we were together, we still had our own, I mean, I think we always wanted to get, I hate to say these words because it just sounds so horrible, but we always wanted to get what we felt like we deserved. And I think that we always, if you look at those that we competed against throughout our career, we had beaten pretty much every champion that ever, within reason, within our time frame. And I think it just got a little old. We always thought that people would, judges, I don't mean people, but like judges and coaches and things would always skaters would come up to us and say, I really thought that, you potentially did better than we did, or man, you got screwed, or something like that. And it just, after a while, it gets to you, and we always wanted more. We always wanted to be top 10 at Worlds. And every time we would get, within striking distance and something would happen, whether it was in our control or not in our control. And it just got hard to kind of stomach. We wanted that 10th place. And I think that I always wanted to be top 10 at the Olympics. And we would get within striking distance so that we felt that, next year we know that we can do it. If this year we're 11th, then of course next year we can be 9th. We just had that feeling. And after so many times of being 11th and never being 9th, Igor was finally like, that's it. It's never going to happen. So
I meant after 06 to go to 07, because you had already been to 2 Olympics.
It's in another Olympics.
I meant like after 06, like most people, you've been to 2 Olympics. Like, I guess what was the motivation then to keep going?
We wanted to go to another Olympics.
Yeah.
We wanted to go.
But we always wanted to, I think we always just wanted more. We
wanted more, and we knew we have it in us. Even though I was 30, I didn't feel 30. I didn't feel that I'm 30 years old. I felt like I'm 22, 23. I felt like I'm in the best shape of my life. I can finally understand why am I doing that, and I can finally feel that I like it. And I knew that I could get further, and I knew that Kristen is the partner for me, and I can do it with her, because it just worked. It felt like it's a perfect situation for me. Yeah. So I don't know, Kristen probably was a little bit different in her thoughts about that, but that was my motivation. I knew that I can get there because the situation that I'm in is perfect for that.
But I think it was never a thought in our mind that we would quit. We were happy doing what we did. We liked training. We liked competing. We always improved in one way or another. And I mean, the only thing that threw a wrench in our plans at that point was the fact that Julien moved back to Russia. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, sure, come move with me. And we were like, no, I mean, I had already done it twice. I was not excited to do it again, especially not, full time. So, and
then at the same time, it was kind of good because we decided to go to Nikolai.
That's what I'm saying.
Nikolai
it was
took us
20 minutes away in Hackensack from.
No, he was in Simsbury back.
Connecticut.
Okay.
So we both rented apartments in Hackensack, and we would drive on Sunday night to Simsbury. We would live in a woman's house with her kids. So I lived in a bedroom upstairs with the kids, and he had the finished basement downstairs. And we lived with her Sunday through Thursday. And then Friday night we would drive home. We would work all weekend. And then Sunday night we would drive back. So because he promised us when we moved to him, he promised us that he was moving to Hackensack. He just didn't know when. So I guess.
So why didn't you get an apartment in Simsbury and teach there if they have a lot of skaters there?
They didn't have a lot of skaters.
Oh, they didn't then. Okay.
No.
And we had already pretty big student group here in Montclair.
Okay. So then you work with Kolya, who's an interesting guy. So I guess what was different between him and Julien? In the technique, in terms of how they train, the whole approach.
With Nikolai, it was more freedom.
Yeah.
Sasha's
a very good technician.
Right.
He taught me how to do cross rolls. And when I tell you, completely broke them down and beat it into you. I mean, we did cross rolls for the Paso Doble. I couldn't even tell you how many hours a day. I thought I would just scream. So he was a very, very good technician.
All right. But at the same time, he didn't give you a lot of choices. He knew what he wants, and he would keep you on this route. And it worked, for where we were at that time. But then with Nikolai, we already different people and different skaters. We already experienced, we already went to 2 Olympics. We already were at top 10 at Europeans for 3 or 4 times. We already got 30th at Worlds for 2 or 3 times. So when we went to Nikolai, it was, first it was very strange because all of a sudden you like, do whatever, Mm-hmm. But then he would still guide you. He still would, what do you want from music? And we would bring him ideas. He's like, yeah, no, let's do this. What do you want to do with costume? Go and do it. So we would go and kind of try to figure it out. And then we would come back to Nikolai, like, Nikolai, we need a little bit of guidance. He's like, well, try this. And we would go and try that. And then we would still, using his, shoveling, he was shoveling us through, but he wasn't taking us through the highway. He was kind of like, there were a lot of exits. And in order for you to appreciate Nikolai and grow from him, you already had to be an experienced skater, So I don't think that someone who would be like us in 2004 would benefit from Nikolai as much as us being 5 years later, because we already had our vision and Nikolai just like polished it and sent it into the right direction.
So this was like the height of Kolya in Hackensack or Simsbury. You have like Javier and Miki Ando, or
Javier wasn't there yet.
Javier wasn't there yet. It was Daisuke, Miki Ando,
Adam Rippon.
Yeah.
Who was else there? Velosajar with Morozov. Who else? Zavozin with.
Zavozin was there but they were there at the end.
Yeah.
Nora
Hoffman, Ukrainians, Anya and Sergey. So that was our group.
Yeah, but at the beginning we also had other Ukrainians.
Ruslan and Yelena they were already doing shows at that time.
I just remember them working on that, I don't know,
Golden
Waltz or Austrian Waltz or whatever. And then you had the Shaylin mix in there, and
yeah, the situation was definitely interesting, but it helped us grow. It helped us. With Nikolai, we had an amazing programs. With Sasha, we had an amazing programs, and with Nikolai, we had an amazing programs, but just on a little bit different level.
And I think they were different, though. I think Julien really worked on getting us organized and sharp. If I think about our programs and I think about the choreography and I think about the musical choices, maybe our blues at the Olympics was supposed to be sexy, but I think at that point, I wouldn't necessarily call it sultry. And I feel like Nikolai, that's what he does. That's what he does. No, but I don't mean it in a bad way. I just mean that he's a very sensual person. And I don't mean that I know physically, but when he would show me what I should be doing, I was like, Jesus Christ, that if he were a woman, that would be really hot, he's a man and, but he could show you, how you were supposed to be and act. And I think he, kind of took our expression and matured it, I guess.
Right. You also were doing all these sexy programs and you weren't a couple yet. You weren't a couple until the end.
Yeah.
Maybe if you, were a couple when you're doing the sexy program, it could help,
And then it would have turned into a fighting program and then it probably would have ended before it started. I don't know.
Nikolai, the two situations, Sasha and Nikolai, were totally different. And I have to thank Nikolai for teaching us, especially me, how to become a coach. Because with Nikolai, you were forced to find solution to your own problems. You wouldn't just go to Nikolai and say, and he would tell you, you need to do this, and that. So you won't just show up at the practice and don't worry about anything else. So you had to worry about music, costumes, choreography, like pretty much everything. He would still at the end, if he sees that you are struggling, he would help you. But there was that freedom that if you actually know what you're trying to do, it's very beneficial for you to grow as an athlete and as a person and as a coach in the future.
Did you work as his assistant? Because there's a video of you on YouTube skating with Isabella Tobias.
That was later.
Okay.
That was during our last season. We worked with when she skated with Ilya, right? She skated with Ilya briefly.
No. She was taking from Nikolai when Adam Rippon and all of them were there when we were in Amsterdam, and she was by herself. She was there skating solo. And then she started skating with Ilya, and I don't know who she was taking from. I think she was in between people, and she was taking from us. She was only taking from Igor at that point, and he was skating with her. We both competed Tango Romantica down at the Edward G. Picken Pro-Am. I skated with an adult male skater, and he skated with Isabella Tobias. And then shortly thereafter, he competed with Isabella in Lake Placid. And then that following season at Nationals, I actually accompanied her to Nationals to watch and see what guys were out there. And that was when Spielbahn took an interest in her and found her Ilya. So in my opinion,
found her Ilya again.
Found her Ilya again. But
she skated with Ilya, then they stopped, then she started skating with the Davidos for Lithuania, and then she started skating with Ilya again for Israel. So.
Does she have more passports than you do?
Yes.
Yeah. The life of an ice dancer. So how many times have you actually been to Azerbaijan, Kristen? If you are from California, twice. Okay, yeah.
Twice?
Three times.
We were there for the show.
Yeah.
We were there for that summer. And then we were there
3 times.
Oh, okay, 3 times.
So now when you transitioned to coaching, was it were you sad to not be competing, or were you ready to be done at that point?
I was not ready to be done. Yeah. I was sad. I didn't watch skating for a full year.
Okay.
Well, definitely for a year at least. I certainly did not watch that Olympics. I couldn't even tell you what happened then.
She was crying every time the skating was on TV.
Yeah. But I mean, we jumped kind of right into, obviously not high level, but we jumped right into having national competitors, US national competitors in singles and ice dancing. So we jumped right into, what some coaches would consider in the US, a successful career just starting out. Like we jumped right into it. And so I liked coaching at that point. It was exciting to travel with your students and things like that. Only now do you want to just sit at home and watch TV a little bit. Not now. Now I'm ready to go to work again. But yes. A couple months ago, I was ready to not travel and just sit down and watch a little TV.
So everyone always asks me, you have a lot of success coaching high-level single skaters, actually. And how do you do that if you are ice dancers? People are always asking. So, what kind of, what did you do through jumps as a single skater? And then, how does that work?
Well, we all learned jumping when we were little. Even though I was kicked out from singles, I still jumped to my best ability.
Only for a year, Igor. Okay.
No, I jumped until I was 11 years old. From 6 until 11. I got through axel and double jumps, but
you've seen his axel.
Right. So you kind of know the technique, plus the concept it's still a concept. Figure skating, the concept is still universal. Twizzles, jumps, there's still only 2 legs and 2 arms and 1 head. So once you understand how it's supposed to be, and you kind of understand the concept of all of the 5 jumps, you don't have to necessarily be doing a triple jump by yourself in order to teach it.
And with elite skaters, it's mostly about timing. It's mostly about timing, and for a lot of the skaters, it's mental. I think that some would say fortunate, and some would say unfortunate, and I hope I'm not saying anything wrong, but we sometimes get skaters who have been overlooked or had kind of the Russian coaching mentality of you suck and you're done and you'll never be any good. And I think that because we are very positive and we do love each other and we do love skating, I think that we are very, very fortunate to have been able to help some skaters. We've been told single skaters, enjoy skating again. We had one when we not very first started, but near the beginning of our start in 2010, we had a single skater, a senior ladies U.S. skater who had competed in U.S. Nationals the year before in senior. Her coach wouldn't let her eat pretty much. And she hated skating and she hated her mother and she was in this horrible situation. And she ended up moving away from her mother, staying with another skater, and started skating with us, and still had to go back to Long Island every day to go to school. So we convinced her, you know, we said, listen, we don't care, but if you want to skate, your only option is to skate in the morning. So we will get up. And that was one of our very first skater, not very first, you had a couple of students, but I didn't have anybody at 5:20 in the morning, not like now. So I said, I will come in at 5:20 in the morning if you come in, and we're going to do this together. And to this day, we're still very good friends with her, you know, through her college career. And she still, you know, calls us mama and papa, and, you know what I mean, helped us. Actually, she and Bianca Plantamura gave us the name Krieger.
Yeah.
So I was pregnant with Rylan. That was how Krieger was born.
Yeah.
They didn't know if, well, we didn't know if I was having a boy or a girl. And so they called it baby Krieger for the longest time. So, I mean, I think that we're fortunate enough to circle back to the actual question. We're fortunate enough to be able to work with skaters who don't believe in themselves. And maybe it's because of my degree in sports psychology, I don't know, or maybe just what led me, like you asked, to sports psychology, to just help those skaters believe in themselves. I mean, Isadora, we have our ups and our downs, but, you know, she really, truly didn't believe in herself before the last Olympics. And it was a really hard road. So we felt a major, you know, achievement and success in her Olympic season, being able to qualify for the long program. And I mean, and she'll even tell you that, you know, it's hard when they don't believe in themselves. It's hard to do, you know, multiple triples in a program if you don't believe in yourself. So I think that that's one thing that we've always had, is we do have a lot of confidence. And I think that on top of Igor's great choreography and understanding of timing, and general body awareness, that we're able to work with a lot of high level.
So they don't hear the music right.
You don't, but you're a good choreographer.
Okay,
I didn't say you're good. I said you were a good choreographer.
But you told me that you're the bad cop with Isadora.
Me?
No, that Igor is.
Oh, he is. I'm the positive one. I'm the
No, but you're the scarier one when I skate. So
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't.
No, it's okay. It's
no. If I don't get through to her, he does the Alexander Zulin on her and kind of gets her back.
Okay, he's Russian. He's allowed, you know. Now, how about when Fleur and Isadora were skating together? Like, did you have to motivate them to compete against each other, or did that just happen automatically?
That's a very interesting question, Dave.
Okay.
You know, girls in general, they don't compete the way men do.
Okay.
You know? Men want to show each other that we are stronger. So if you do your triple axel and I see you do it, I will go and try to do my best. Girls are a little different. You know, they get discouraged if they think that they can't do it. But then again, it goes back to the point of us trying to help them to believe in themselves. You know, so Fleur and Isadora are totally different people, just simply because Fleur is older, Isadora is younger. You know, Fleur is already a woman and Isadora was still a little girl when she came to us. So it was very hard to find motivation for two of them to be on the ice at the same time, just simply because they would get discouraged if they see the other one, you know, do something what in their head they can do.
But they didn't spend very much time on the ice together.
Right.
I mean, well, that goes back to kind of the wounded bird kind of situation. We knew going into having both of them in the same group that they weren't the kind of skaters or women or, you know, athletes that were going to compete against each other. They just wouldn't. If there was too much adversity, they just shut down and that was it. They would rather go home and not eat a pint of Ben & Jerry's than to stay and fight. So we were lucky to have a male single skater who was very, you know, strong physically, not necessarily consistent, but, you know, he was strong and he was a young kid, so he had lots of energy, and we would kind of alternate his practices so that he was on the ice with either one of them, you know, like every other day, to try and motivate them that way, so that they did have other jumpers, but it wasn't necessarily a hormonal fight.
All right.
It's not like to share. So that
Neither do I.
I don't think Isadora likes to share either.
Yeah, but Isadora, Fleur told me that they would cut each other off intentionally all the time, and Isadora didn't know that was happening, apparently. So,
because as I said, Isadora was still a little kid when
yes.
Fleur was already much more experienced skater.
Well, and I truly think that when the three of them came to us and we all knew that we were going to have three skaters for small countries trying to potentially go to the Olympics, qualify for the Olympics, I really think that in all of their heads, I mean, maybe Isadora would say this incorrectly, but I think that they all thought that Isadora was the underdog. I think that they all thought that they had it and Isadora didn't, because she was an inconsistent hot mess and there was no way that she, you know what I mean? So that I think that they felt, and then when she ended up being the one that, you know, stuck it out and made it happen, I think that they were all.
And the challenging part for us was we are always try to stay, you know, give the same amount of attention and love to all of our skaters. But in a situation like this, it's very hard to explain to them that we as the coaches can prioritize. You know, we can't say you're great and you're not, and we can't do this to that and not the same to the other. So we are just trying to stay consistent to all our students because we care the same way about all of them. And then one of them makes it and the other don't. Let's create a little bit of, you know, conflict, which again, we as the coaches feel kind of helpless in this situation because it doesn't matter what we say, you know, it's never at that point gonna taken, you know, correctly. In the long run, you know, it's different, you know, but at the moment, it's very hard to deal with this situation as coaches when you have so many great competitors, you know, at the same time.
Do you prefer coaching singles or dance?
I don't know.
I think it's easier to coach dance in training. I think it's much more stressful to choreograph, and I think it's much more stressful to handle at competition dance teams versus single skaters. Single skaters, I think it's more physically and mentally draining for them. Training, you know, they really, I mean, at least we've noticed, especially with Isadora, and I think that we've learned a lot from Isadora, that the amount of mental focus that it takes to get through. Like when she came to us, she was like, I do 30-minute practices. And we were like, huh? She was like, I only practice 30 minutes twice a day. And we're like, what the hell can you do in 30 minutes? That's like enough time for stroking and 2 spins. Like what are you doing in 30 minutes? So we really had to completely reboot her to understand that, first of all, she can skate longer than an hour. Like to get her to do an hour and 15-minute practice, that was like, you can't imagine. You just can't imagine. And not only that, but to keep mentally focused for an hour and 15 minutes for a lot of single skaters, it's hard. So
it's also different muscle work. You know, jumps take much more energy in a shorter period of time than a pattern of pattern dance, you know what I mean? But for dancers, the challenging part about dancers that they do have to skate a lot in order to mold together. You know, they do have to skate 3-4 hours a day. And then the choreography from coaching standpoint is much harder to do for dancers versus single skaters. You know, single skaters free program can be done in 2-3 hours. Dancers, we're talking about 1-2 weeks, you know? So back to the question, which one do we like to work with? It's just different, you know. You
like the boy that has the hair that's very, you know, parted and combed, that couple. Yeah.
A good couple.
Yeah. Now, how about the fact that you learned your turns later when the rules changed? Did that help, you know, you in coaching now, the fact that you had to kind of revamp for all the requirements of ice dance?
I think the thing that helped, I mean, I think that he always had, I think he always had the technique. So I think doing turns for him then and now I think are the same. The thing that I think is different is my calling. You know, being a technical specialist and learning the rules from that aspect, I think that that's helped me be able to see turns differently. And I think that the coaches that are out there that choreograph for whatever audience they're going to have are the ones that are successful. I think the Spielbands and people like that, they know their angles. And I think that that's a huge part of the game.
When Kristen started calling on international level, it completely opened my eyes on what needs to be done as far as choreography. You know, because as a coach, you don't always look at the same turn the same way the technical specialist does. You know, I am just looking at how it looks like. It looks great, amazing. And then Kristen comes in and goes, that's level 0. I'm like, okay, why? She's like, because this, and that. I'm like, yep. So, and then, you know, once she became a caller, the entire chemistry on the ice between two of us changed. Because now I'm relying on her mostly to see whether what I'm choreographing is worth anything, you know? And before that, I was like, you know, I do something, I like it, okay, let's go. And nothing, now it's a little different. So you have to know what you need to show, and you need to know how to get there. And that's why dance is so much more difficult to choreograph than singles, for example. You know, you still, whether you want to admit it or not, in singles you have your elements, you have your jumps, you have your spins. If you don't go through the program clean, you won't be able to show the choreography. You know, it's just like going to be no program. At the same time, if you do all of your jumps and you have a good choreography, it's going to be an amazing program. You know, ice dancing, every step counts. So you might screw up your lift to spin somewhere, but you still, in your head as a dancer, you know that every single step I do matters. Single skaters don't have that mentality, just simply because their priorities are different, you know.
So how do you think your skaters will be after the break? Do you think that they will be more physically fit based on your classes now? Or, you know, what are your like expectations for when you...
I think our dancers are going to be in good shape.
Yeah.
But because they're the ones that are really, I mean, I would like to not say that ice dancers are harder workers, but I think that, like Igor said, we're used to putting on the hour, you know, putting the hours in on the ice. And I think, therefore, I think it's evident in our class attendance. Most of our ice dancers are taking, you know, 3 and 4 classes a day minimum and running on their own. I mean, the skaters that we have from other coaches that are doing their coaches classes in addition to our coaches classes, I mean, you can see the dedication and you can see, you know, the physicality. I think that they will, you know, reap the benefits. I think that some of our single skaters who aren't doing as much, I think it's gonna take some time to, you know, because it is, like I said, all about timing. And if you can't feel that timing when you get back onto the ice, there's going to be a meltdown and a rebuild. And so I think it's going to be.
And are you going to keep up your classes once the ice opens up? I mean, now we are like ripped people, you know, what is?
We will. We're talking about every day, you know, and I think the whole concept of that came to us by surprise, and I would always want to say, like, by accident. You know, we started with something in mind, and
it's my idea.
It was
you knew before the ice closed. You told me that we were going to do it. Yeah.
I just had a feeling, like, and I said to him,
no, it was Kristen's idea, and I just executed it.
Yeah. No, definitely. I have great ideas.
And Ravi Walia is always asking about your classes, how they get these people, what are they doing, you know? Yeah. So
who does? Sorry.
Ravi, who does in Canada.
Yeah.
We coaches, and here's the thing, when we were on the ice the whole day long, you want to have a hip hop class, you want to have this class, and you want to have that class, but you know that skaters will have to travel 1 hour, 2 hours to New York to get those dance classes, or someone will have to come back, and then we're talking about cost involved. You know, there are always obstacles. What was stopping us from getting all those great people who would help our skaters, and now thanks to that, you know, that obstacle disappeared now. And as long as we know what we want to find, and we find those great people, and we, you know, connect with them, it works great.
Mm-hmm. Now, what are you going to do your stroking class in the morning? Because, you know, we're supposed to have a real edge class now.
Well, we're definitely going to have that because I don't think we're going to have Learn to Skate anytime soon on the ice.
Yeah.
I think Learn to Skate's going to be a bit behind everything else. I mean, but that's not necessarily, I mean, we might be able to do, you know, a smaller group class. We just have to look at, you know, minimums and maximums, and it's all going to be about affordability too. I mean, right now there are people around the world that are, you know, buying private ice. You know, if you can afford to pay $50 for an hour of ice on top of your coaching fee and on top of your commission and everything, then I mean, all more power to you. But a lot of people can't, and that's why when we started this out, you know, we didn't know what everyone's financial situation was. We knew what our financial situation was, and we wanted to help keep everybody motivated and keep things affordable. I mean, you know, we wanted our skaters to do as many classes as they possibly could, because we wanted everybody, you know, to stay going and stay interested. You know, I think a lot of our classes are interesting. You know, we do them. When you don't see them, it's just because we're behind the camera, not because we're in another room.
I don't see you doing Igor soup cans, Kristen. Okay, I see no videos of you doing soup. My parents do it. Okay, so
she's behind the computer.
Screen. Have you seen him work out? Do you think there's any space next to him? Do I want a soup can flying on my head? I have to be on the other side where I'm safe.
I don't know. My whole family does it. We have collisions that take place.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't want to be hit by him. You've seen him fly doing that and shoot it up Superman.
Did you do the shoot the duck into the front?
I do the stepping one. Where do you think he gets the modifications? From me.
He does not modify anything.
They can't do that. What are you doing? Slow it down.
And did you count because he cannot count?
He only stopped counting on that one. That was
no, he can't count his normal push-ups. Either he's not going all the way down, or I don't know. I can't see because I'm doing it, but it's not the normal speed. So,
so here's what you need to know. When he starts counting faster, that's because it's hard. Yeah. He wants it to be over. He's like, "Ooh, I'll go," and then he's done. If it's easy, that's when he kind of counts slowly and yeah.
Okay, so he says he's going to choreograph my program. So we're going to have, you know, I want to look like if Paul Wiley was Russian or Jeff Buttle was Russian. So, you know, we have to.
Sounds good. Now we just need ice, Dave.
Yeah, no, we need ice. I know. So, well, thank you both so much for coming on. Everyone can join your classes at krigordance.com and your Facebook page.
Yes.
And we will see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you. Good night.
All right. Good night, everyone. All right. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll probably post it tomorrow. So, okay.
Bye,
all right. Bye, everyone.